Our Heavenly Father, I want to give you praise and thanks for your goodness. Lord, as we begin our class together, it's the hope and prayer of myself and all my brothers and sisters kneeling before you, that we would learn from the Holy Spirit, that we would be guided and directed as you teach us step by step. You are the teacher, Father, we are the students. We have nothing to offer, nothing to give outside of that which you have given to us. Lord, may the atmosphere that permeates through this school be one of forbearance and love. At the very beginning, we hope that each of us will maintain our Christian etiquette, that we would speak respectfully to one another, not say anything that's rude or disparaging. Father, we're all different. If someone says something to one of us, may we have the grace and the mercy and the humility to overlook anything that might be said that was inappropriate, especially if it was said accidentally. Help us, Lord, to love one another as true brothers and sisters. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. We're going to begin our classes, hopefully in a gentle way. We want to cover over, at least in my classes, we want to cover some fundamental or basic material that I'm hoping that all of us should be familiar with, or at least if we're not, that we will become familiar with. I want to start by saying, many people have wondered why, when we claim that our close of probation was 2019, that we say that the Levites will not be joining us for another 2 years. So how you count, we don't know the exact beginning and end date, but just working on the years, why we claim that 2019 was the close of our probation and 2021 is the time period that the Levites join this church, join us. Why do we think that? Why do we think that has happened, or is it going to happen? Now, I don't know everybody's names. I may never learn everybody's names, there's too many. So if I stand up and I point to you, my brother and sister, I'm not being disrespectful. So please don't take it that way. I know some people's names, so because I've communicated with them. So the question that I pose to you is, why is there this dead space, this period where essentially nothing is happening? So I'm going to draw it on the board. So I'm assuming that we'll have some knowledge of understanding of priests, Levites and Nethinims and the 144,000. Even if you've only heard of those terms, even if you don't know the details. I know many of us here are quite skilled at drawing out those lines and replicating them, understanding what they are meant to be showing us. But if we use an agricultural model, this is the harvest for the priests. And we know that the priests, Levites, Nethinims, 144,000, etc. Why are they not joining us at this moment in time? Why is there this gap? If the close of probation has ended here for the priests, why are the Levites not joining us straight away? What's going on? Why is that happening?
I'm Linda.
Speak loud.
Yes, my name is Linda.
Linda?
Yes. So I think that God is still preparing them. In as much as we are ready, like the priests, we're not, the Levites themselves are not yet ready.
So, Sister Linda has said the reason why they're not joining us yet, and there's this 2-year gap, 19 to 21, before the Levites come, is because they're not ready. We're ready, but they're not ready. Sister.
I think the period for
Speak a little bit louder.
I think the period for their harvest is not yet come.
The period for their harvest has not yet come. Why? Why has the period for them not yet come?
If the lines are what dictate that, I think as we draw the lines,
Let me repeat what you said. So the lines dictate that they're not ready yet, and if we draw the lines,
they show that their harvest is not yet.
so it shows that their harvest is not yet. If you draw the lines, the way we would draw them would be something along these lines, like this. Yes? And you said that the lines dictate, which is very similar to what Sister Linda said, that if we have the harvest for the priests, you have the harvest for the Levites, and it would make sense that they're not quite ready yet. My brother.
I think the Levites are still receiving the latter rain. So after the latter rain, then the harvest will come. And for the priests, we still need to get that message right. We don't have it for the
Okay, so my brother has said two things. He said the same thing that both my sisters said, that it's too early because they're not at that harvest time period. But he disagreed with Sister Linda. Do you remember what she said? What did Sister Linda say? Do you remember what she said? She said it's not their time yet, but she said something else. Oh, others interrupted you? Yeah. Oh, you didn't hear? Clearly. Okay, it's fine. Someone put their hand up. What did Sister Linda say?
priests are ready.
Okay, so that's what she said that was different. She says the priests are ready, but the Levites are not ready. And my brother, you know? Brian? So Brother Brian said the priests are not ready yet. So we've got two contradictory answers. Yeah? Anyone else want to make a comment?
It's because that the priests are the one to preach the Levites.
And
after, we can see 2019 as the cross. After Jesus has been crucified, the disciples did not go to the Jews there and then. They waited up to the Pentecost.
This is baptism as well. Okay, so you're perfectly correct. If you go to another line, you can show that. But what I want us to see is conceptually that there's a problem in this movement. There's a problem with the priests, as Brother Brian said, and you can show that through the model of the cross before Pentecost.
I think if we are making the line of the road at 44,000 as a template, we are going to see that after the close of conviction, there is no any other journey that comes.
So the explanation that you're going to give is that if we took it to the line of the 144,000, that here no one joins after the close of probation. Where's the close of probation for the Levites?
Fine.
Close of probation is here for the Levites.
Yes.
The close of probation for Adventism. Same place?
Yes.
Not Sunday.
Okay, when I look into the line of the priest, so we know very well that 2019 will be a close of probation. And if the probation has closed,
For 1 second, I need to repeat so people can hear.
all right.
So 2019, and so it's for the camera as well, is a close of probation for the priests.
Yeah. So, and then after the close of probation, so they are going to pass through the period of harvest. So until
Period of
harvest.
harvest, sorry.
Yeah.
We're going to go through the period of harvest.
Yeah, in which in harvest time, so the tares are separated from the wheat.
So the tares are separated from the wheat.
Yeah. So and therefore the line of priests now ended at Penium. So and if their work or their binding up has ended, so now the Lord will begin to call another group. So therefore priests will be ready so to call the Levites. So that is why I see so the Levites join at Penium.
What's wrong with the priests?
So the priests are under binding up. From
What does that mean?
The harvest time.
What does that mean? Binding off harvest.
So they are being separated because
I understand it means that, but I want a concept of why can't the Levites come then?
the Levite. The reason why they're not coming is because the first people who were called are not yet ready. There is a special work that the Lord is doing through them. So after that, so the Lord is doing the work of harvest to them.
To them. A
Yes.
special work to them,
Yes.
not through them.
Yes, to them.
So they're not ready, and there's a special work. And what's the name of that special work?
That is harvest.
Harvest.
Yeah.
So you said binding off, I think.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Okay. The reason why there is no labor which are coming between 2019 and 2021 is that when I go to line of Christ, then you are going to see that 2019 is the cross.
I'm going to stop you there if you don't mind, because you're going to say the same thing that my brother did here. 2019 is the cross, Panion is Pentecost, and 50 days they're doing their own thing, 10 days they're in the upper room.
Yes.
Same answer that he gave. Yep. Did I cut you off? You were going to say something different.
Yeah, because my point is going to be a bit different. Is what
Okay,
it
so we'll summarize that, and your point was?
So if you go through that period, then you see that the disciples they are not yet in harmony. So they have not understood clearly the message of the message of Christ. So you are going to see that at that point they are going to prepare themselves to give a special message to the people.
Okay, so that is the same point. It's the point that not ready, there's special work that needs to be done to them. And you can see that in the story of Christ. So, my sister. Yes. What is this special work that needs to be done to us? What are we not ready?
They are good harmonies.
Sorry?
They are good harmonies in the messages. As in the case of the disciples at the Pentecost, the parables that Christ was teaching when he was with them, they never understood. So at the resurrection of Christ, the disciples understood. Christ looked for them and he taught them the messages which he had been teaching them for 3.5 years. For 40 days, they understood.
So let me stop you there. So you're saying, I'll go back to 14. Everything that we've been taught since 14, the last 5 years, particularly the last 2 years, the messages that Elder Tess has taught, you're saying that we don't actually understand them.
We are not harmonized.
Are we not in harmony with each other, or we're not in harmony with God? When you say we're not harmonized. Harmony is when two people are not saying things together. Who is not in harmony? You and me, or us and God?
The messages that we have been given through that dispensation, we are not having the same mind, and we cannot understand. We cannot give the same message. So we are required to.
So let me stop you there. The messages that we receive here, we all have them, but we don't see eye to eye, so we're not speaking with the same voice. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And you carry on. And you should tell me when you finish.
So before the Levites are given the message, before they are harvested, we have to harmonize. We have one voice, then the Levites will be called.
Okay. So now you've clarified what harmony was. So you're saying that you and I are not in harmony yet. We all believe these messages back here. You believe the midnight cry message? I do. You were taught it, I was taught it. But there's a problem that we're not in harmony. So, what's caused this lack of harmony? We both received the same message. You received the same one I did, you watched the same videos that I did. Maybe you watched a few more than I, maybe I missed something. But we all watched the same thing. So you and I are not in harmony now. So, why are we not in harmony? Brother. Why are we not in harmony? If you agree with my sister's premise, you agree, hopefully. I'm going to come to a conclusion on part of this. The reason why we're not going to the Levites, we can use the line of Christ, we can use these lines to explain something. So I'll give you a chance to think about your answer while I'm talking. What I want us to see, when we start thinking about parables, is there's reality and there's make-believe. There's things that are not true and there's things that are true. So the make-believe, which we would call often the literal, which makes it sound like it's the real thing, which means it's not make-believe, I want to say that is make-believe. So all of this agricultural model, is this literal or spiritual? This is literal. Is that make-believe? Yeah? There's no sickles anywhere. You don't have one in your bedroom. No one's getting their legs chopped off. There's no harvest going on. It's all make-believe. It's not true, is it? So sometimes when we think about the literal to the spiritual, we go natural to spiritual, and natural is real sheep, real people, real water. It's the real thing. But there's no real harvest going on. So I want us to see that when we talk about this is the natural model, which is not real, speaking about the spiritual, which is real. The spiritual is that you and I have had a fight with Future for America and we're now separated. Real life. Real life is that we're at this camp meeting and you're not at another camp. Why? Why aren't you not worshipping at a conference camp? Real life. You see something about what's going on in the United States to worry you. Real life. So those are real life things. That's the real thing. And this is the make-believe. We call this the natural, and what we're experiencing is the spiritual. Now the thing is, all the answers that we received thus far, not every single one, but most of the answers that we received, when I said why, everyone gave me, not literally everyone, the most answers I got was what? What was the answer that I got? Don't tell me what people said. Did I get the true answer or the make-believe answer? I got the make-believe answer. I got told the reason why it's not happening is because Christ waited, or the disciples waited 50 days. That's true. But that's not the reason why we're not doing something. That is the make-believe answer. That is the parable or the natural or the literal answer. It helps us to explain what's happening at one level, but it's not the real reason. We did not say, we better not go and see Levites because Christ waited 50 days, so we'll wait. What will we wait? 50 days? 50 weeks? 50 months? What are we going to wait? We didn't choose to wait because we had a line. So we can't say the reason why we're waiting is because Christ and the disciples waited. We can't do that. We can't say the line indicates that they're in the latter rain now, which is true, isn't it? Levites are in the latter rain period. So that's why we're not waiting for them, or we're not calling them in, because they're in the latter rain. That is the make-believe answer. It's a parabolic answer. We can answer that way, but what I want us to see is the real life reason. So I want to suggest, based upon the answers that we had thus far, the real life reason why we're not going to the Levites is because we're not ready. We're not ready because God's got to do a special work for us. So I'm going to take the binding off out because that's the make-believe answer. And I want to add the third one. What do I want to put here now? The last conversation I had, what do I want to put there? Who put your hand up? Who was that? Who spoke? Someone shouted out. Well, I didn't hear what you said.
Not ready.
I've got not ready already. That was Brother Brian said that. And someone said special work. You said special work.
The Levites are in the period of the latter rain.
Okay, so the Levites are in their period of latter rain, but that's this moral answer, which we would call the natural one, but there's no rain anywhere. Yeah? So I don't want to give that answer. It's true. I want to give the real life answer. You already got it. Who can remember? I don't even say who said it. I want to ask someone else. My brother? Yeah. Yes, you. Well, I want to ask, someone's already given that. I just want to see if you heard what they said.
I don't think I have that. I'm going to give my own answer.
Okay, wait for a moment then. I want that one first. In the blue shirt. Not sure? So put your hands up if you've got an idea what that answer was.
Let's person say that we are not honor.
What are you going to say? Speak loud. Harmony. Okay, I want to pick up that word, harmony. Mr. Linda, you said what? What are you going to say?
I was going to say the same harmony. We are not in harmony.
Good. So the problem is, we're not in harmony. So, I want us to think about what is harmony. Before we do that, I'm going to give my brother an opportunity. In the white shirt, you said you had a different answer. Speak loud so I can hear.
Okay, this is what I'm seeing in practical. It's not related to the trees not being ready, but this is what I'm seeing on the side of the Levite. After 2019, November 9, the tribe, including the Levites, began to mock us as to whether November 9 has been fulfilled.
So let me stop you there. You just said the church and the Levites were mocking us.
Yeah, including the Levites.
Do you think a Levite would mock us? Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you. Are the Levites in their latter rain?
Yeah, but I think they are not yet perfectly understood.
But that's fine, but they're in their latter rain.
Yeah.
So as they're receiving their latter rain, are they accepting the latter rain?
Yeah, but not 100%.
Not 100%. It sounds funny. It sounds funny, but the problem is, if you don't accept it 100%, you're going to be half right and half wrong. And the problem with that is, hold on to that thought. When we say Levites, by the way, what do we mean by Levites? Remember your thought. I just want to make one point, because I think some of us are using Levites differently. The reason why I say that is because you said what? Church and. You separated the church and the Levites. So if you separate church and Levites conceptually, I want us to think about what we say a Levite is. Now we can think of this these two ways. Either we talk about the time period of the priests and the time period of the Levites. We can think about it that way. Now if I said the time period of the priests, how many priests would there be? This time period of priests. Brother Robert, you're late. Come and join us, my brother. Time period of the priests. If I say it that way, how many priests would there be? Anyone just shout out one answer. Depends. Depends on who the priest is. But I've said a time period. I would say 17 million. God's going to go where? He's going to go to the church and he's going to say what? What's he going to say? Sister. You said, so I heard you say something. You didn't speak? You just smiled. My sister in the glasses. What did God say to the church? Just a little bit louder, sorry. The fan makes it hard to hear you. Can someone shout out what she's saying?
She didn't get the question you're asking.
Okay. We're in this time period here, which is called the priest line. 1989 to 2021. I am calling this the time period of the priests. So if I call it the time period of the priests, I say, how many people would that be? I said 17 million, which was the code word for church. So someone shouted out church. So God's going to go to the church and say what? What's he going to say to the church? If you say something, would it be a message he's going to give them? Agree with that? So he's going to give them a message. What message will he give to the church? Let's go with Revelation 14 verse 6. What will he say to the church? What message would he have for them? If you know 14:6, don't shout out, please. Bit louder. Good. So he's going to go to the church and give them the everlasting gospel. That's the message he's going to give to the church. And in that gospel, if you want to work with the definition, the everlasting gospel is a 3-step prophetic testing message that first develops 2 classes and then makes them visible. We want to say it that way. I said it in the simplified version that most people use it. If that's the case, what will that gospel do? It's going to produce 2 classes. Everybody agree with that? So, 2 classes. My sister there? Yep. Do you agree with that? We're going to go to the church and God's going to give a message called the everlasting gospel. It will produce 2 classes of people. Can you name the 2 classes for me? Yeah.
Like
Sister Monica.
Yeah.
Yes, Sister Monica. I like it. Tell me the name of the two classes. Not it depends, just give me the names.
Okay. Foolish and wise.
Foolish and wise, okay? So I want to use a different terminology than foolish and wise. Another one.
Yes.
What time period are we in? This whole period here. I said we're in the time period of the priests. We're in the time period of the priests. We're going to the church. We're going to create two classes of people. Name one of the classes. Okay? So, foolish priests and wise priests. We could say it that way. What I want to say is the two classes we'll call priests is one of them, and the second group, what should we call that? Don't want to call it foolish priests. Shout out someone. Church. Are we okay with that? Yes. Let's call it the church. That's the leftover. So, now we're going to go here. This one. What line is this? We call it the Levites. There's a message that's going to go to whom? The church or the Levites. Who's it going to go to? Are we all saying the same answer now? Church. Because this is what my brother was pointing out. Church and Levites. He said that there's some difference. So now there's a message here which is called what? The everlasting gospel. It's going to create two classes of people. It's going to be called what? The first group. Is everybody okay? It's going to be called Levites? Yes. Okay, so this is what we tend to call Levites. We could call them wise Levites and foolish ones, but we just call them Levites. What's left? Let's go to this one. We call this Nephilims. My sister with the glasses? Yes? Can you tell me the story? What's going on here? We just did the one of the priests. We just did the one for the Levites. And tell me this one for the Nephilims. God's going to go to whom? Where? It's going to go to the whole world now. And what's he going to say to them? What's the message? Don't whisper, please. Let her do it. What did he say to the priests? What's he going to say to the Nephilims? Good. Upon the testimony of two, a thing is established. 1, 2. God's dealing with humanity is always the same. Whatever he does for the church, he does for the world. Okay? How many people are going to be produced? How many classes are going to be produced? 2 classes, good. Name them. Try and keep the same. Good. Let's try and keep the same one. And? So, I want to give everybody an opportunity to comment on that. If you don't think it's correct, we can change it now, because we're working together. Or if you agree with it, or you want to say something. So, we'll do this side first. Put your hand up if you want to add something here or not. If there's silence, that means you all agree without comment. There's nothing further for you to add. It's all good.
I have a question. Like you are going to say in the line of the Netherlands, the message is given to the world, and it's going to produce 2 classes of people, which are the Netherlands and the world. This line of Levite, message is given to the church, it's going to produce Levite and the church. Now, in the line of prayer, it is given to what?
The message is given to what?
Yeah,
Okay, whoever said that said it's the church.
it's given to the church.
Okay.
Yeah? Don't laugh, don't laugh. It's not funny. The message is given to the church. And then from that church, people will come out. We call them priests. Priest is not real. It's make-believe or a symbol of something that's a real life thing. The real life thing that came out of that church is you, me, and the rest of us. That's why we call ourselves priests, because we're actually the things that come out of the church. Then these come out of the church, and then these come out of the world. So I want to make sure that you're in agreement and we're all clear. You're all good? Okay. So what we might say is, this is the leftover. This is 17 million people minus, 1,000 of us. So 6 million, 16 million, 900,000, etc. But it's less. When we come to this one, it's even less what's left over. Maybe there's 10,000 Levites. I don't know what the number would be. It'd be 16 million, 900,000 and a bit. That's what's left over. With the world, there's 7 billion. Maybe 1 million people would join us. I don't know. So it'd be 6.9 billion or whatever that number would be. Yeah. So this is always the leftover. This is smaller than the world that was here. It's the leftover of the world, leftover of the church, leftover of that side. So any more comments or something to add on this side, and we'll go to the other one.
So I think I agree with the model.
Speak louder.
So I think I agree with
You
this.
agree with the model?
So examples to support it is Daniel 8:14.
So we're going to support this model, Daniel 8:14.
In 300 days it's broken down to 490 and 10 years.
1 second. 490 and 1810.
So in Daniel 9 you're told the 490 years is cut off for the Jews. Then the 10 years is for the Gentiles. So if you apply this will be the church, and the Gentiles will be the world. So it gives us the order in which the gospel is carried. The gospel first goes to the church, then to the world.
So this model says first the message of the gospel went to the church and then to the world.
But when we bring in other stories like Ezra 7:9, it begins to break down how the gospel is given to the church into two parts. First to the priests, then to the Levites.
So from Ezra 7 we can do priests and Levites, but as my brother, your name? As Hosea was telling us, even in the line of Christ, we have first the disciples, then we'll just say the 3,000. We could even show it there. So we've got second witness to show that this looks correct. All good? This side. At the back.
I have also some answer in form of questions.
Could you please stand up? Sorry, speak louder.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
I have my argument here that the priest came out of the church, and then the church remained, and then they called the Levites, and then the Levite comes out of the church, and the church remained, and then we went there, and then now the everlasting gospel went to the Bethany, they came out of the world. So I would like to know what will now happen to the remains.
You stop for one moment. So you agree with all of that, what we've drawn, and now you have a question.
Yes.
What?
The question is, what will now happen in the remaining, the church which has remained, that we have already picked the Levite and the priest from it, and the world that we have already picked the Levite out of it? What will happen to this thing?
So the question you're asking, let me ask you a question. This one here, this is the church that remained. Yeah, you agree with that?
Yeah.
What happened to that church?
The priests, the Levites, the priests still call the Levites out of that church.
Okay.
The Levites come out of that.
So from this church, it was what was left over was this story here.
Yes.
So your question is, what's going to happen to this one and what's going to happen to this one?
Yes, exactly.
As we go through our studies, we're going to try and address that. So I'm not going to try and tackle it here, but that's the important question. What happens to that leftover? Any other questions here or comments? My sister.
Question.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Okay, it would be like from 2018 to 2021, what we see Levites.
1 second. From
2019.
Okay, 2019 to 2021. This time period here,
Will we receive Levites?
will we
We won't receive Levites.
receive them, did you say?
We won't.
We won't receive Levites.
Yeah.
Okay?
Then those would be coming in because I think we want to talk about those would be coming in. Will they be priests?
Okay, so this is a common question. The people who come in this time, what are they, priests or Levites? So again, we're going to tackle that question with a bit more thought. So I don't want to just say yes or no to that, what it is, but I want us to think a little bit about more about that. My answer to you would be, no one's coming in. That's what my answer would be. And the answer that I give is that a real life answer, or is that the pretend answer that I gave you? Which one did I give you? Sorry? No, I'll give you the pretend one. Because to find out what's happening in real life, you have to go to the pretend. And you agree, all of you agree, that the close of probation, you didn't agree with this because we didn't discuss it, means a cut-off point. Finished, sealed. If I say it that way. We can prove that. So let me say it this way. When Michael stands up, Daniel 12:1, in whatever we're talking about, is the number made up? The number of anything? Yes, because Revelation, what? Revelation 22:11 says, Mr. Snyder says what? Paraphrase.
Revelation?
22:11.
He that is unjust, let him be just. He that is wicked, let him be wicked. He that is pure, let him be pure.
Paraphrase now.
There are two classes of people. Pure and wicked.
Paraphrase more. Based upon what? What we just said a moment ago.
Nobody's changing their side.
No one's changing their sides. So if you have 100 people on this side,
it's going to be 100.
It's going to
remain.
So the number is fixed. Do you agree with that, my sister?
Yeah, but
so the property of a closed operation is the number's fixed. So the parable or the make-believe, the model, would say no more people joining. And we already agreed that the Levites don't join until 2021. So the model would say no one's joining. What happens in real life, we have to ascertain. Because we look around and sometimes you think no, real life does not match with the lines. So we'll discuss that more. But I just wanted to introduce the thought to you that I'm saying if you go to the line, the symbol, it says that no one joins. So we have to ask ourselves, do we hold on to those lines? And if so, what does it mean in real life? Does that make sense to you? Even though it's not a complete explanation.
okay, it's kind of frustrating because you'd be like, no one is doing it.
Why is that frustrating if no one joins?
I believe something.
You believe some will join?
Because
what's that belief based upon?
it's based upon reality.
Okay, so you're basing belief on reality.
Yeah.
So the question is, should we base our belief on reality or make believe, Sister Joy? Is that no more electricity?
Yeah.
So, I want to just summarise what we're saying. We believe in the midnight cry message, all of us do. And yet, the movement is having problems implementing that message at its most fundamental level. Whether it's racism or whether it's sexism. Racism is a lot more subtle now in the 21st century than it's ever been. And people generally think it's all sorted out, the racism issue sorted out, but it's not. It really isn't sorted out. Even in our own hearts, we haven't sorted that issue out. The gender issue is much more easy to identify because it's just much more visible. So my question that I wanted to ask once we got into our study is, why are the Levites not joining us? So we had different answers, and the answers that we got primarily was that the lines show that they don't. Whether it's this line, this agricultural line, or whether it's the line of Christ, showed us that it's not going to work. And that's all fine. But I want to go to the real life reason. And the real life reason is, we're not ready. God needs to do a special work upon us. And I don't want to say it's like 1, 2, 3. Maybe the harmony one is all to do with this. We're not in harmony. That means you and I do not see things the right way. So that's what our problem is. So we discussed this a little bit more. And then the question came up about the difference between the church and the Levites. I know my brother didn't get opportunity to finish his question. So I did this bit of board work here. What I wanted us to see is when we talk about priests, we need to be clear what we mean by priests or Levites or Nethinims. So if I ask you a question, which I haven't asked here, but based upon what we've said, Nethinims. My sister in the yellow top. I'll give you multiple choice. Nethinim. Is a Nethinim someone of the world or someone... no, let me put it this way. Is a Nethinim someone who is on Satan's side or someone who's on God's side? On God's side. Why do you say that? Okay, so when we talk about the Nethinims, is a Nethinim someone who's a worldly person or a godly person? Godly person. Yeah. Hope we all agree with that. Do we all agree? Anybody disagree? Just put your hand up if you disagree. Okay, so everyone agrees. What's the proof text for that, Brother Willie? Proof text, Brother William, sorry. Proof text, these are godly people. Tell me if you need help.
So you're asking for the...
What is proof text for that?
That
the Nethinims are godly people.
Is that Revelation?
You tell me.
Revelation chapter 18, verse 4 and 5.
Okay, so Revelation chapter 18 identifies these people, these ones who come out of the world as being
People.
my people, God's people.
Yeah.
So we have a proof text for that these are good people, God's people. That's the definition of being good. We all agree with that.
Yes.
So we saw here that often when we think about priests, we just say there's these priests, which is us. But this is a dispensation where the message went to whom? It didn't go to the priests. The message does not go to priests. The message does not go to Nethinims or Levites. The message went to the church. And only a few people came out. The people who came out was the priests. That's the symbol we give them. So there was a message that said what? Come out of her, my people. Is that right? So we could say priests are who? God's people. This is where people become confused. If that's God's people, who is this?
Satan.
It's a church. So we become confused. So we can't call this Satan's kingdom. We can't do that. We have to give them something. To give them some title, which we'll try and come up with. We'll try and come up with an answer. I don't want to continue the class. So this is God's people. Who are the Levites? God's people. Who are the Nethinims? Okay, so it's a recurring pattern. So when we say priests, Levites, and Nethinims, what we mean is God's people in a particular dispensation. Dispensation of the priests, Levites, and Nethinims, who respond to the message positively. And what's left over are the people who reject that message, whether it's the church or the world. It's all the same. There's an important question to ask. What happens to that leftover church and that leftover world? We'll try and answer that as we go through our classes. What we want to try to understand, at least for the next class or two, and how long we take, is what is this about? We can explain the model with the story of the Christ line, sort of line of Christ. We can explain it that way. We can explain it through the harvest model. You're in the latter rain, therefore you can't be harvested. We can explain it that way, of course. But we want to understand, what does it look like in real life? Because the questions or the point that's being made is, my sister said, it seems strange that no one's going to join this movement in real life. And in fact, maybe we think people are joining us in real life. So now it comes to the idea or concept. In real life, what does this look like? What does it mean if you join or not join? If you're part or you're not part? So we're going to try to explore that a little bit so we can have a clear understanding of how our lines operate. In summary, just this one point. When we talk about the natural and the spiritual, we can say natural is real life. We're familiar with that. In fact, Ellen White says the seasons, the plants, the animals, real life is what we consider the natural. But what have we said here? Real life is what? It's all make-believe. These are all abstract models, whether it's wheat or tares or priests or Levites. They're all abstract models. What we see here is real life. So I want us to make sure we understand when we talk about natural and spiritual, how we conceptualize what the spiritual looks like. The spiritual looks like real life, in fact, and the natural sometimes isn't so natural. Last example, the book of Joel. Tell me what the natural is. The book of Joel, chapter 1. Locusts. Insects, good. Locusts. What's the spiritual? The nation of Babylon. Isn't that sort of getting it the wrong way round? The real thing, the natural real thing that you see is the nation of Babylon. So we need to have a working model, concept, how natural and spiritual work. Sometimes it's counterintuitive. If you want to explain what's going on in real life, how do you explain what's going on in real life? Through the parabolic stories, through the natural, because what you see in real life is what? Natural, spiritual. It's actually spiritual. So when you see a real man born in Nazareth who claims to do a lot of things, is that real life? Of course it's the real life, but that is the spiritual. To explain that, you have to have these natural or symbolic stories that teach you about what's going on. Sometimes it seems easy, but we're getting to a place where we need to be able to conceptualize these things in a more complex fashion. Because a priest is not real. Neither is a Levite, neither is a Nephilim. There's no harvest going on, there's no latter rain going on. They're all symbolic expressions of what's happening in real life. And of course, real life is the natural or the spiritual. It's the spiritual. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness and mercy. We want to ask and pray that you would help us to reconcile any differences that we have in our minds, in our hearts, with the models that you're teaching. Lord, we know that we're not ready. We know that there's a special work that you want to do for us. And also we realise, Father, that we're not in harmony. May it be our prayer that here, at this school, those things can be remedied amongst ourselves. That each of us can come into harmony with one another. That we can begin to be ready for the work that's ahead of us. We thank you and pray in Jesus' name.